Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to the first session of our facilitation on GST 807. Today we will have a quick run through of the course guide, and then we will zero in on the first 3 units of Module 1. And these essentially are the definition of open and distance learning, the history of open and distance learning globally, the history of open and distance learning in Nigeria, and then the reasons why open and distance learning institutions has come to stay in this country. This course is going to be very interesting because it is aimed at making you particularly suitable to learning in an open and distance environment. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to GST 807. Good evening. Yes, you are welcome to GST 807, and today we are going to handle the history of open and distance learning system. I am your facilitator for this course, Olubi Adeni Adewale. Ladies and gentlemen, now by the end of this unit, you will be able to define open and distance learning. You would be able to identify the various stages of distance education. You should be able to differentiate between distance learning and open learning. And you should be able to comment on the role of technology in distance learning. I welcome you to the first. Now, open and distance learning, or ODL for short, it's a combination of two concepts of education. The first one is distance education, and the second one is open learning. However, all through the academic world, there has never been a consensus definition of what the two terms are. But for the purpose of this class, the purpose of this course, we will be zeroing in on the Commonwealth of Learning definition of 2015, which defines ODL as a system of teaching and learning characterized by separation of teacher and learner in time and or space, and uses multiple media for delivery of instruction. It also involves two-way communication and occasional face-to-face meeting for tutorials and learner-to-learner interaction. Now, by this definition, you discover that characteristics of the ODL system have been brought out for us, and you will see a lot of this as we continue in this study. Session of now to the history of distance education. Now, like we have said, ODL is a combination of two terms. So we are going to start with the term distance education because distance education actually came before open learning. Now, some scholars say there are 5 stages in the development of open learning, and some scholars adopt 3. Now, for our purpose, I will adopt the 3 stage. And the 3 stage are identified as the correspondence stage, the sound and video stage, and then the computer technology stage. We'll take a little bit look at this stage. Our facilitation on G. In the correspondence stage, which is the first appearance of distance learning, it started in the mid-19th century. Great Britain, France, Germany, and the United States were the first countries to go into distance education. Now, Pitman correspondence course, which was started by Sir Isaac Pitman in the 1840s, was the first officially recognized attempt at distance education. At the degree level, the University of London was the first to offer degrees through distance education. The University of London External Program was established in 1838 and chartered in 1858. GST 807. The sound and the video stage. The invention of the radio laid the foundation for the second stage. Now you remember that radio was invented during the Second World War. Now, the first educational instruction by radio was aired in 1916, and by the 1925, the use of radio in distance education became global. By early 1960s, the University of the Air was established, making use solely of radio signal in distance education. Today, now in the 1980s, there was a phenomenological technological breakout, and this brought about the computer technology stage. Continuous technological development began changing the educational landscape, and today we will have a quick run through the landscape. Now let's look at open learning. Open learning emerged in 1970, built on a different educational philosophy. Now, the educational philosophy of open learning emphasized learners' choices. Learners' choice about the medium of learning, learners' choice about the place and pace of learning, learners' choice about support mechanism, and learners' choice about the entry and exit points. Now, the combination of the philosophy of open learning and distance education gave birth to ODL, Open and Distance Learning. And open and distance learning is today the most rapidly growing field of education, and its potential impact in all educational delivery has been greatly accentuated by the development of internet-based information technologies. Of the course guide, and then now I want you to take some minutes, some seconds to consider this question. You can actually judge some points. What is the importance of open education in the 21st century? That's a big question. I want you to look into it and maybe have a kind of jottings or a write-up if you want on this question. Let us go on with the zero in on the. Now, the first open university, which is the Open University of UK, was established in 1969. Since then, many other open universities have sprung up in various regions of the world. The current trend in open universities today is a movement towards internationalization, and this is enhanced by political and economic factors as well as information and communication technologies. Educational software is often international. Satellites and electronic networks allow transmission and communication across national boundaries. For example, as we are in class today, you may not know if some of our students are in other countries, and because of electronic network, they are able to log in and attend their class. So the global classroom is no longer a concept of our imagination or of the future. It is reality now. First 3 units of module. Now, I just want you to know the number of open universities. Africa has 10, Asia has 44, and for your information, Asia has been the leading continent in the quest for open and distance education in the world. And also, I want you to know that out of these 44, about 16 or 17 are in India alone. Oceania 1, Europe 12, North Central Americas and the Caribbean 7, South America 3. 1. Now, open and distance learning in Nigeria. We'll now just run down to look at the history of open and distance learning in Nigeria. As far back as our 1977 National Policy on Education, the country has already anticipated the coming of open and distance learning. And the history of open and distance learning in Nigeria also followed the 3 stages of distance education. And the ODL mode was first employed at the tertiary level by the Ahmadu Bello University with the University of the Air in 1972. University of Lagos followed in 1974 by establishing Correspondence and Open Studies Unit called COSU. Later, they changed it to COSIT, Correspondence and Open Studies Institute, and today it is known as Distance Learning Institute, DLI. And these essentially are. Now, the first university, Open University in Nigeria, was National Open University, which was established in 1983 but was aborted in 1984. It never saw the light. In fact, it never admitted students before it was aborted. Then, in 2002, under Chief Obasanjo, who became the first Nigerian to bag a Doctor of Philosophy degree from the National Open University of Nigeria, NOUN was established in 2002. Commonwealth of Learning is also partnering with NOUN with the creation of the Regional Training in Distance, Open and Distance Learning, because actually Commonwealth of Learning is seeing NOUN as the pioneer to train and to prepare West Africa for open and distance learning. The definition of open. Why do we need National Open University of Nigeria? Open and distance learning. One, the carrying capacity of conventional universities. Now, what I've just brought up here for you is the table of the number of students who took JAMB from 2008 to 2017, number admitted, the percentage of those who are admitted, and the number not admitted. And you will discover that between 2009 and 2013, there was a straggling over 1 million students not admitted. In 2017, 980 not admitted. And we need to ask ourselves, it's not because these ones are not qualified. It is just because the capacity of our conventional universities do not provide room or access for them. So one of the major ways by which admission rigidity can be removed and for these other ones to access education is to create the Open University. The history. Now, the need for lifelong learning. Now, continuous demand for higher education. You discover that in the last few decades, there have been continuous demand for higher education by employers of labor for promotion as well as for assessment. And this makes employees to begin to run around to acquire higher education. Let's take an example. Before, minimum qualification for primary school teachers in Nigeria is the Teacher's Grade 2 certificate. When this was moved up to the National Certificate of Education, a lot of people either have to lose their job or improve their educational level. In fact, it was estimated that there are over 400,000 primary school teachers in Nigeria who do not have the minimum Teacher's Grade 2 certificate as at that time. Of open and distance learning. Finally, the need for lifelong learning. For us to keep on learning, to keep on being relevant and current in our various fields, then there is the need for us to keep on learning. And that's what they call life globally. The history. And so, your last activity for this class is to tell us to what extent will you say that information communication technologies have affected teaching and learning in Nigeria? In Nigeria. History of open and distance learning. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. In Nigeria, and then the reasons why open and distance learning institutions has come to stay in this country. This course is going to be very interesting because it is aimed at making you particularly suitable to learning in an open and distance environment. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to GST807.